Okay, so welcome to Funky Junk, and today we're going to look at the SSL Fusion, which has been really popular with a lot of our customers and generate a lot of noise. What is Fusion? Fusion's what I'd call a polishing box. It's a series of tools which you can use across a mix before it's mastered or as part of mastering, just to add that final analog polish. Where does it really shine? For me, and we've tried it in different configurations across analog consoles, across digital mixes, it really shines as a sort of tool used in conjunction with your mix chain on an in-the-box mix. So what we've done today is we've set this up as a hardware insert. We've got a mix that's been done in the box but without anything on the 2-bus, so no plugins across the 2 mix in Logic. And we're going to just do the 2 mix chain analog. We're going to start off with what everybody likes to put across the 2-bus, a gentle bit of compression here. We're just using a Manley tube variable mu, just to give a gentle squeeze, and as you can probably see that on the camera, you're getting half to 1 dB just to give it some nice tube roundness in there. And then we're going to start introducing the extra features that you've got here on Fusion, just to see how much of an improvement we can get out of our mix beyond basic compression on the 2 mix. So Fusion, as I said, is a collection of tools, and what we're going to do really is look at this collection of tools from left to right as we go, because the workflow on Fusion's really mapped out for you to work logically in the way the front panel aligns itself. First things to notice, you've got an input gain and an output trim as well, and these are quite wide ranging. They go from -12 all the way down, all the way up to +12. On both sides. And if we do a quick test, boosting up to +12 and cutting down minus and then reversing it, the sound's nice and consistent, which means that we're not really driving or getting any sort of artifacts from that process. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can interface with a wide variety of sources. If you've got the balance of your in-the-box mix almost there, but you find out it's too low, well, you can boost it, or if it's too hot, you can cut it. You know, if you find that after doing all the processes with compression and using all the tools in here, that you're still just peaking uncomfortably around on your converters as it goes back in, well, then you can back off. So that's the input trim and the output trim. First thing in the loop is a high pass filter. What's interesting to listen to here is the ranges that it's in. The high pass filter is at 30, 40 and 50 Hertz. So we're really looking at the sub frequencies, mains, hum, etc. from 50 downwards. But as you'll hear, as I've put that all the way up to 50, it's actually quite a natural. It just rounds out the sound a little bit. So for this, maybe we use a little bit of 40, because I do want some of that resonance in the low end to be in this kind of mix, but I don't want to destroy it completely. So that's our high pass filter at 30, 40 or 50. The next thing we're looking at is the drive circuit. Now the drive circuit on this has 2 controls. You've got drive itself and then density, and density is all about introducing some harmonics. Now this track's got a nice vintage vibe going to it, and maybe I want to bring a little bit of a little bit of drive to it. And you can hear as I kick this in, let's exaggerate the drive. And you'll notice the meter above is telling you how hard you're hitting this drive at the moment. So green is tickling it, obviously, and red is you're really driving it quite hard. And then let's bring up the density. The more the density that you bring up, the more harmonics you're adding into that signal. And if I take it out, you'll hear the full effect of that. Gone. Perception of loudness and that drive back in. So let's just back it off a little bit to get it into nice territory. And I think what you'll find when you work with Fusion is it's the cumulative effect of so many smaller and subtler adjustments that add up to a really nice mix at the end. If you go too heavy-handed on any one stage, you can end up ruining things and having less room for manoeuvre the further into the chain you get. So that's us filtered, and we've got a drive. I want to look next at these next 2 sections within there, because really I kind of view these as part of the same. What you've got is the brand new Violet EQ, which is a low EQ and a high EQ, which just has a basic frequency setting and a gain or cut, and the high frequency compressor. these work really well together because the high frequency compressor on its own has a threshold and a crossover control. So you can set this up to simulate something alike, you know, that gentle kind of roll off you got on analog tape around 10k-ish sort of territory. What we do know is that's nice and it creates pleasing analog sound, but you do start to lose a little bit of the air that people do enjoy in modern digital recording. And you can restore that air without getting too harsh with the EQ. So let's just do a little experiment. For starters, let's start boosting some air in here. So I'll set that maybe 14k, exaggerating the amount I've got in there. You can hear that at the top end that might seem a little bit harsh to some. So if I want to still preserve the air quality but maybe take some of the harshness out, I can kick in the high frequency compressor. And you can hear, if I just roll that down a little bit now, taking it in and out, it gives it a classic sound. The air hasn't gone, but the harshness has, and there's a nice separation. You can hear the elements with both things going at the same time. So these two are very much a used together kind of tool, in my view. Of course, on the low end, you've got some decent low end frequencies there, 30, 50, 70, 90. So if I want something around the 90 hertz just to boost while I'm still cutting it at 40, you can hear that's quite a solid and very pronounced sound. In this case, whilst I like that double bass sound going in the background, I just want to bring it off so it's a little bit less prevalent and just a gentle, subtle use. So these two sections working together actually can achieve quite a lot for you. What I'll do is let's just take everything out of the mix now as we build it up and set back, and then I'll bring it slowly back in so you can hear it in effect. So we're starting off again, a high pass filter, just a little bit more clarity in that low end. The drive, instantly there's a few more harmonics present and it helps the clarity and the separation. And then bringing in these two together, that's the violet EQ and the HF compressor. There's a nice top end to that with some air, but it's not harsh, and there's a little bit more separation at the top end by using the compressor in combination with that EQ. We've also just taken a little bit of the boom out of the bass so it sits a bit more comfortably. The next section is the stereo imaging control, and there's two parts on this. One that's very obvious, which is basically the width control. So if I bring this in at its extreme, we've started to widen out the higher frequency content. The bass is still quite central. If I was to roll that all the way the other way, we've brought the mix more into a mono sort of setting. Now for this kind of music, I actually quite like it less wide, and there's a sweet spot here where it starts to start feeling like a more classic recording, like the sort of thing you were listening to on a single turntable back in the 60s or 70s. Space does something slightly different though. Really, it's a lot more subtle, but if you listen to it at the low end, what space allows you to do is, with traditional mid-side processing, you know, the mid is very much centre panned, and you're talking about the relative level of that to what's on the outside. Whereas with space, you can actually spread and disperse the mid a little bit more. The low end frequencies a little bit more. So if we were to take space and boost it up, and if I just bring the width up again, you'll really hear the difference of space on the low end. So that's the low end quite dispersed and wide. And when you bring it in, you can hear the lower end content coming far more central. Obviously those are extreme settings, and on this, just a slight narrowing is what I'm going for in terms of space and width. And I think that comes into focus. If I took it out, slightly wider, bringing it back in a little bit tighter, almost radio friendly. Going further down the chain, we also have an analog transformer in the signal path. This is quite subtle, but you can definitely hear certainly linked to the amount of gain you're pushing into it and how much you're driving that transformer, a difference in the harmonics, particularly in the lower mids. So here we go, let's put it in. Now to some ears that won't be very subtle at all, to others they may feel it is, but if I took it out, a little bit more solid, like that sound. Lastly, as we said, Louis set up his mix starting off with some compression in there, just gently squeezing, as you can see here, 0.5 to 1 dB. That compressor can actually be set in its normal setting to sit here between the EQ and high frequency compressor and the stereo imaging, or you can set it so it sits ahead of the EQ. So we'll just, for the sake of it, just listen to that pre-EQ. Very different effects on the low end there, you can see, because of the way it's gain staged and the way it's hitting the compressor. That's a much more natural sound because that's the way Louis set up his mix. Of course, the final proof of the pudding is, if I took this out of circuit now, has my mix improved or not? So that's us bypassed. All we're doing is going with a compressor. And if I actually bypass the compressor as well, you've now got the in-the-box mix with nothing effectively going on. Bringing back in our compression. Okay, it's a lot more weight and density coming into that. And then bringing in fusion. Now then, looking at my levels, I might just want to bring this up a little bit because I've got some room. I prefer to bring the gain staging in the analog domain rather than try and do it digitally. Obviously there's gain difference there, but overall, quite a happy mix and quite an improvement. The nice thing as well with Fusion and the workflow with it is that it's actually quite simple to recall. When everybody's very busy, if you're doing everything else in the box, but this is sitting on the 2 mix to give you the sort of analog thing that you're after, recall is not onerous. There's not a lot of parameters there to think about, and a simple snap on your camera phone gives you a recall that you can paste in with the project file and find it again. So there you have it, there's Fusion.